best for you both. I know the version of me is cheaper birdie like me, but she'd go down on you in a theater. Does she speak eloquently? And will she have you, baby? I'm sure she make a really excellent mother. 'Cause the love that you gave that we made wasn't able to make it enough for you to be open wide. Oh, and every time you speak her name, as you know how to tell me you owe me until you die. But you're still alive, and I'm here to remind you of the mess you left when you went away. It's not fair to deny me all the cross I bear that you gave me. You, I don't know. You seem very well. Things look peaceful. I'm not quite as well.
My name is Flavio Rivera, General Director of Automotors, and we're very happy to participate with the DHL. Thank you for inviting us. At Automotors, it's concern about sustainability in transportation. One of our offers in this environment is our vehicle of heavy load C7H, a vehicle that it's not only profitable because of its functionality, but it's also very productive for its natural gas technology and will allow to reduce costs in fuel up to 35%. And in the other hand, we have developed an alternative of last mile delivery with 200 kilometers of autonomy that will enhance to reduce CO2 emissions. These solutions are the ones we offer, and please let us help us in C-Trek Metropolitano. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. We're back at DHL Transportation Forum 2021. This is Claudia Marquez, Senior Manager on Solutions Team by DHL Supply Mexico. We are on the last part of our first activity day. We couldn't be any more excited with what we had this first day. By the way, let me thank all our business partners, Sinocrow C-Track, that are our sponsors one more time for this event. We want to remind you that in our virtual broadcast, all conferences are available in three languages: Spanish, Portuguese, and English. You can click on the language you preferred wherever you see it on your screen.
Hello, everybody. I am Sergio Morales, Manager of Development of Business in DHL Supply Chain. Once again, we invite you to share in your social networks experience of this event with photos on your own visions on logistics. All opinions are welcome. We invite you to add the hashtag TFHDL2021 to keep on with the conversation and to share them worldwide. And to give this great ending, DHL Supply Chain team has prepared for you all a panel with one of the most important trends at the moment, inbound manufacturing. You cannot have a better closing for today's agenda, that's for sure.
This panel, besides touching on one of the most relevant subjects of today, will join two experts on the subject to talk to us about inbound manufacturing as a solution for effective transportation. We have the two most acknowledged executives on the sector.
It's for me a great honor to present Gloria Perez, who is responsible for transportation in Audi Mexico. Gloria has more than 20 years of experience in the automotive sector and has been part of OMC providers and Gear 2. She studied in the University of Puebla and she will share the experience she has learned in planning of transportation and optimization of inbound managing.
Together with Gloria in the panel, we have Monica Preco. She has a business degree on international trade with a mix of administration by the Valle de Mexico University. She has over 11 years of experience in the automotive industry and she has participated in customs and logistics. She will share her experience with inbound manufacturing with us and how this is relevant in Audi Mexico. Monica and Gloria, welcome.
And to moderate this panel, Alfredo Palacio, who in DHL Supply Chain Mexico, will share the stage with these two experts. Welcome, and I am sure that this talk will surprise our audience.
Thank you very much, Sergio. Thank you, everyone. Just like my colleagues said, welcome to this debate table. We will talk about inbound to manufacturing, a transportation solution that is very current, very relevant. It might seem as new in several sectors, although this is a solution with over 20 years in the automotive sector. It helps us be more efficient in costs, inventory, and we will delve into the concepts, trends, challenges, so this debate table will be quite entertaining. As it's been said already, I want to thank Gloria and Monica, two ladies I have had the pleasure to work with. I respect them profoundly, first of all, and they are experts in the inbound subject. Let us talk about the concept first, and then we will address some of the questions that I'm pretty sure will help each and every one of you have the right notion of what is inbound to manufacturing. As I was saying, first of all, we will hear what is inbound to manufacturing. What are its elements? You can see in the presentation there are several phases, and there is a red box. This is a transportation spectrum in inbound to manufacturing. We have planning, transportation, cross-dock, storage, and by all means, the line fitting. We will focus on the first three, and like you will hear in the operation and the debate table, we have planning all over. Planning is paramount in inbound to manufacturing. We will have on a constant basis analyzing data to come up with the best way to make transportation efficient. The first important concept is inbound to manufacturing is the inverse sense of what we usually think when we talk about transportation. You talk about transportation, you think about taking a merchandise from a storage to the end destination. The situation changes with inbound. On a very regular basis, we have to work the other way around. We need to bring the necessary material for the production line to come up with the products and send them to the customers. This is the first concept that changes when it comes to common transportation definitions, and this is also where planning becomes highly relevant for this concept, since it takes concepts of materials to be collected, restrictions in their handling, restrictions in the type of transportation that needs to be used, and from there we have a mixture to come up with a steady operation. Inbound to manufacturing constantly provides us with certainty as to what we will be collecting. This is on and what we will be collecting, but how about the who we will be collecting it with? DHL, as a foreign capital company, we hire many of you, many of the people in our audience, perhaps even some of our customers. We create synergies, we hire people to make sure we have the best transportation means for the merchandise. Now we talk about who we collect the material with. Finally, we have to come up with the total visibility. What is the situation? How can we communicate to our end user what is being done and when it is being done? Inbound also includes having systems to be able to communicate these logistic events in real time. Once we have the what and who with, we start talking about synergies. Inbound to manufacturing allows us to use FTLs, full truck loads, NTLs, and the mill route. This is the ones that were used before to deliver milk door to door. We do pretty much the same. We trace routes to collect one, three, four suppliers, fill the truck, and send it to the manufacturing company. This situation allows us, with the right planning and transportation means, we can make it more efficient and take the material right when you need it to the production line. Crossdock now allows us to consolidate little merchandises in NTL, arrive with this merchandise, consolidate it, arrange it in a certain manner according to the demands of the customer, and hence being able to provide the best result. With all these concepts, what we are aiming to explain is that inbound to manufacturing is nothing but a versatile transportation system providing specific solutions to our customers and that could be reactive and flexible. Flexible since there could be planning tailor made, but also reactive to improve and change the situations from scratch constantly. Inbound to manufacturing is a new trend and is becoming very relevant throughout the different transportation sectors. So we will talk about it in more detail with Gloria and Monica. Gloria, let us get started with the questions. First of all, thank you for being here with us. Clearly, we have to talk about the benefits. What are the benefits that you, in your own perspective, see from inbound to manufacturing in manufacturing industries?
Well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me, DHL team. Practically what we see on day-to-day basis with this solution, and you mentioned it before, is to plan previously. This previous planning allow us to have like a lean operation with a seamless operation that will reduce the cost of operation in a day-to-day. As I see it, it is a change of mindset, like from a traditional transportation approach to be it more, which is more reactive, to more strategic planning. With this, we can be more transparent and we have more information for decision making, and this decision will help us to improve the efficiency of the processes we're using. And in the same way, we will minimize risk and it is where client, provider, and transport meet, and it is to find the best solution. It is certainty, it is flexibility, and it is having a business partner that can understand our needs as clients.
Thank you, Gloria. Of course, the concept when you have the material, you need transportation means. This is where inbound is no longer here. We are planning and making decisions on a regular basis before the situation is conducted. This allows us to be more certain as to what is going to happen by minimizing the risk. Thank you for your contribution, Gloria. Now, let's move on to talk about not just the benefits, but also the things about money, efficiencies in economic terms. Monica, something important we have to talk about. Freight cost from inbound to manufacturing are changing little by little. When it comes to cost per kilometer, FTL, we hear it more and more. Cost per kilometer, breaking the normal paradigm we had in cost per trip. And LTL is even more so, cost per cubic meter. So how does this situation and the cost situation particularly help us? What are the benefits stemming from here where we can find competitive advantages and variable structures of costs?
Hi, Alfredo. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me for this panel. Well, as you mentioned in the beginning, this is not a new concept. In the automotive sector, it is a common practice. You mentioned it. It has been in place over 20 years now. And in my point of view, I think it is like an emergent opportunity for several industries. In inbound manufacturing, there exists previous planning work which is absolutely strategic, and it is according to the requirements of the operations that you define clusters of transport with with the specifics of the volumes you will transport. For instance, if you are transporting directly from point A to point B with some premises of transit and time which are very well defined, type that you needed to do distances that have been like set up previously with logistic team, and this cluster separates it is per cost of the per kilometer cost. So you're just paying for the distance that was pre-established for this freight and FTL schemes. So for these volumes that are not like big enough for a direct transportation, you assign clusters in the consolidation patterns like with cross-docking, and the concept here of the relationship of payment is that you pay per metric, cubic metric that you are carrying. You are not paying for freight inefficiencies. So with these variables of cost per kilometer and cost per cubic meter, when assigning clusters, that will allow you to have a total control of what will happen in your operation, and in the same time the flexibility that you can make some modifications. So all these like previous planning will give you clarity in your operation, in the logistic process that you'll follow, and will turn into your most valuable resource.
Of course, and you just touched on a very important point. The problem everyone needs to be very clear on in the transportation industry is that the customer wants to pay for what they are using in the transportation network. When we talk about price per trip, there are many risks that could take place when loading and could end up in additional costs to our customer. We are breaking the paradigm in this situation. When you are operating with costs per volumes like in FTL, we know those volumes will fill the trucks. You are making your freight cheaper when talking about price per kilometer. Price per kilometer will be cheaper than price per cubic meter. But when you are creating price per cubic meter, this is lower volumes that do not quite fill the truck. And when the truck is not full, you need to pay exactly for what you are loading onto the truck. The risk we had before of paying for air, like we used to say, due to the lack of logistic planning, it needs a previous analysis, and this is precisely what inbound to manufacturing is about, like Monica said. Thank you very much, Monica. Of course, inbound is moving very frequently. I would like to ask both of you, what are the challenges you see for the future and the solution for this? What are the next steps in this solution for the nearest future?
Well, we have talked, let's talk about not the future, but something that we're living in currently, which are crisis, the crisis we're living in today. COVID on the one hand, the automotive sector also, the lack of semiconductors. And definitely what I see that will be a challenge for this model is how fast can it adapt to the needs and the customer needs and industry requirements during this crisis. And it is a fact that more crises and challenges will come, but how fast can it adapt? That is key.
And I would like to add to that as an important challenge for this model of transportation, highway infrastructure in the country and strengthening security in the latter to prevent robbery, to transport merchandises, having alternate routes in highways at the same time as making them reliable for contingency options such as, I don't know, blockages, something that could jeopardize the safety of the supply chain and logistics chain, creating an increase in the costs of operation. I would like to add another one, the lack of operators. Today, the context in Mexico is not the same as before. We are not living with the same dynamic as before. There are less operators. We have less qualified people to operate certain terrestrial transportation, and they are a crucial element for the logistics operation, and this is turning into one of the main challenges in Mexico, to be specific.
Totally agree. And something that's happening is that the industry in, was in transportation like a family industry. So it was like the father was moving this with the son, and but the son doesn't want to transport merchandise anymore. So that represents a challenge, like how we can make these jobs more desirable, like to operate the units or to generate other strategies to move merchandise some other way, like with the technology or something else. Talking about infrastructure, it is very important to talk about cross-dock or drop and hook, and these situations allow us to agilize the operations. Nowadays, something that we're living constantly is that trucks go to some point, whether to collect or to deliver merchandise, and supposedly we have like all the knowledge of what we are doing, but when we go to collect or to deliver, it can be like a bottleneck that you have, and you spend more time than where you were planning, so that jeopardizes your planning that you had. So the drop and hook, what is that? You put the truck there, you leave the boxes, and then you collect others and move. So that's an added value, not only for the customer, but also for us, like to move units in a better way from house to house. So, in addition to what you said, these challenges in infrastructure to change the logistics of this and the way we do things, because the paradigm how that has always been done, but now we need to break that and do things differently. Thank you. So let's move on to the next question and have it here. We spoke about infrastructure, planning, and how to execute this, but inbound is also very related to systems and uh, and concepts like Go Green. We need to look constantly for other technologies that allow us to be congruent with our way of executing our operations. So obviously, a lot of kilometers are, but these travels need to be green. And what kind of technologies in green technologies you think we'll have in inbound manufacturing?
Bueno, en este punto creo que es el tema de buscar soluciones
Well,
go green
right
a día
now,
de hoy
looking
pues
for
es
Go
algo
Green
necesario
solutions is
y
something
no solamente hablando del
everyone
tema
is
de, por
looking
ejemplo,
for,
del
not just
transporte,
talking
sino también
about
el trabajo por el
transportation
compromiso que
infrastructure.
tenemos
This has to
hacia
do
el
more with the
planeta para poder
commitment we
reducir
have
las
towards the
emisiones,
planet
más en un sector
to
como tal
reduce
automotriz
emissions,
y más como en el
especially
sector del
in the
transporte.
automotive
Lo que
sector and the
nosotros hemos
transportation sector.
visto
What
con
we
el
have
modelo
envisioned
es,
with this
hablando también un poco
model
de la planeación, la
is
defendemos muchísimo,
understanding the
porque al
planning.
final
I will
nos hemos
advocate
dado
for
cuenta
this
que esa
every time
misma
because
planeación
we
nos
have
permite
realized that
compensar
the
de cierta
planning
forma
itself
los niveles
allows
de
us to
CO2,
compensate
como pues,
CO2
al hacer la
emissions.
preparación, al
How?
hacer el
By
análisis,
making the
la
preparation,
optimización de
carrying
las
out the
colecciones,
analysis,
de la frecuencia de
optimizing
las
collection
mismas,
points,
el hecho de que
frequencies.
traigamos
The
camiones
fact that
llenos,
we have
el hecho de
full
traerlos
trucks,
nos permite reducir la
full
cantidad
load
de
trucks,
transporte
by
y al
using
final
them,
un
you
tráiler
need less
menos en una
less
autopista
units
lanzándose al
and
CO2
one
a la
trailer
atmósfera es
less
una gran ganancia.
in the highway is
No
already
sé
a
qué opinas
big
tú, Moni.
win. I don't know what you think about this money.
Claro, siempre estamos en la
Yes, we
búsqueda
are
de
always
estas
looking
soluciones que nos
for
permitan
options
influir
that
en
allow
la
us to have
reducción de
an impact
emisiones de
in
CO2.
reducing
Por
CO2 emissions.
ejemplo, tener
For instance,
parte de un
having
programa de transporte
partners
limpio,
with green
transportes,
transportation and
transportes de carga con
also
tecnología
freight
gas,
transport
GNC,
with gas
que
technologies,
a
gas-driven
últimas
vehicles.
fechas es un tema
And
que ha sido de
this
mucha discusión a
last
nivel
months,
internacional
this has been
porque
like
pues
talked a lot
realmente este tipo de
internationally.
tecnología nos está
To
dando una
it
reducción
has been discussed
considerable
if
en
this is
términos
reducing
de CO2, ¿no? En
CO2
comparación con
emissions
los
in
camiones diésel.
comparison to
Sin
diesel trucks.
embargo, desde mi punto de vista creo
Nonetheless, in
que
my
es
point of
sumamente
view, I think
importante
it's
que
very
México ya
important
contemos con
that
este tipo de
Mexico
tecnología
already has this kind of
para camiones
technologies
de carga
for
y
freight
es un gran
trucks.
paso.
And it is a great step forward because with this we expand our infrastructure in the country for this kind of fuel. So in that manner it will be much easier to migrate whenever we have more access in the Mexican market of biofuels. And in this way we can reduce our CO2 emissions in freight transportation.
Of course, thank you very much, Moni and Gloria. And this is perfectly compatible with our policies to have zero emissions by 2050 or compensate emissions. An important situation, like Gloria was saying, as partners of manufacturing companies for this solution, we are constantly looking for a way to compensate. Of course, we will never achieve actual zero emissions in our operations unless we get to 100% of electric units for our operations, but in the meantime, we are looking to minimize with planning, with having to travel less kilometers as possible with more merchandise, and we are making investments on a constant basis, like the GNC gas units we have for our inbound operations. However, like Moni said, increasing this demand will help gas companies' infrastructure grow larger. We cannot have as much investment because today there aren't many points in which we can recharge this type of units with this specific type of gas. We have to keep on breaking paradigms, and this is a situation inbound does very often in order to find more infrastructure and make more trips with these technologies. We also have the technology of electric trucks. There are many brands that are barely envisioning it in other parts of the world. As a Mexican industry, we should start envisioning it as well. Even if it's with smaller units, we need to start looking for newer technologies. Finally, there are other technologies that can help diesel units have more support and lower CO2 emissions, such as Trilab, one we have in DHL, where we place a photosensitive film at the top of the container, and it helps conduct electricity to the alternator, and hence compensating the movement of an electric ramp, for instance, or AC or cooling units, and not demand as much consumption of diesel in the unit. I think we are aligned with inbound because it gives us a push to come up with solutions responsible with the environment. Very well, we talked about what inbound is, what the challenges are, and even the go green picture. Monica, I want to ask you about the future, especially with when it comes to inbound. We hear more and more about the open networks, creating synergies to lower costs even further. What do you think are the main challenges in this situation that get in the way of reality? What are the next steps to take?
Well, that's a very interesting question. My point of view, I will say that the main challenges in order to have an open transportation network, as you say, I think the first of these challenges is the standardization of the processes of communicating data and information in our systems from different participants from which this network is available to, so we can have a better communication with the logistics supplier. And as a second challenge, I think of creating business rules with very specific goals, like tracing which is our margin of action. For instance, what kind of merchandise or materials that may be considered in these synergic schemes, if they are non-dangerous materials, of course, geographical limits and this kind. Also, materials and merchandise that are not considered critical, and among others that I can mention. And in these business rules, I also think it's very important to include plans of actions that are very clear to to make it very easy to practice, that it not only stays in a sheet of paper, but that effectively reduce our risks. And when you give this step for an open network, you can be sure that it will happen the correct way. So in case you have to solve any problem, you can do it fast. So I think these 2 points are critical in order to have an open network.
Thank you, Moni. Why do we talk about open network? Perhaps we should provide a bit of a deeper context here. Inbound to manufacturing is deeply related to planning. If we can have the same truck go to the same place because it's the same supplier, let's say it's a candy supplier. I go take the candy, a grape chewing gum, and it's the same path that I have to follow for three different customers. I am helping the environment at the same time as making the trip more efficient to make it even cheaper. Just like Moni said, planning, synergies, that is important, yes, but also the rules of the business. This is when we need to break the mold. If we're looking for a cheaper means of transportation, the time and the urgency are the main differentiator in this service. What will happen when something is pressing, when something is urgent, when you need the merchandise in an urgent fashion? The customer will raise the hand and ask us how we can break the route, how we can service them without compromising the benefit of inbound to manufacturing. The business rules, the interaction amongst company, I think would be the main challenge to set up open networks where the rules of interaction will not make it simple either to combine medical merchandise with food merchandise, or medical merchandise with hazardous substances. We need to know what we need to put it in the planning blender, and hence coming up with an effective solution for all the customers. It can be done, it is complex, yes, but this is the challenge posed by the solution of transportation. Thank you very much, Moni. Let's go ask the last question for you, Gloria. And then we will move on to our QA with the audience. I have to pose the question for you. So here we go. What has been the contribution of your business partners, whether it is a certain red and yellow logo, any contributions? Because I know it is not just us, many partners in transportation solutions. What has been the contribution from them? How have they helped implement this solution and the ongoing improvement as well?
Ok, no es comercial.
Okay, it is not an ad, but in general, the main point is that our business partners understand that we are not talking about just one freight. It's not about moving things from point A to point B. It is something that goes beyond that. It's an integrated service with infrastructure and also technologies. It's information and data, and it's planning. It is communication and collaboration between those who are transporting clients, operators, and everyone. So that is very important. Somebody that understands the whole thing and who is committed to deliver solutions and who has clear the expectations that we have with them and the reach of the model itself. And talking about infrastructure, it is super basic to have a solid infrastructure in transportation and in technologies too, and that may give us clarity, and they ensure us a lot of things. Most of all, in the automotive industry, we are sure that our materials will get to point B and there will be no breakage in our chain, that our inbound chain is solid enough to keep on producing with no interruptions.
Thank you very much, Gloria. Let's sum up the whole conversation. Inbound to manufacturing is a transportation solution that has been around several years in the automotive sector. It is being incorporated in other sectors, and it is aimed towards planning. We need data input about the merchandise, about transporters, how the material needs to be collected, where it needs to be collected, to come up with the necessary synergy and certainty. Through the clusters, we heard FTL, NTL, 1,000 runs, with infrastructures affecting not just storages as a cross dock, but also transportation itself, dry transportation, small transportation, helping us to consolidate merchandises and provide solutions. These means of transportation have to be aligned with the Go Green picture. We want to become more responsible towards the environment. We look for solutions around lower emissions of CO2. On top of that, this is something relevant for all transporters out there listening to us. We need transportation solutions that understand the business, that understand and break paradigms, such as the concept of cost per trip or cost per kilometer, the concept of cost per cubic meter. Breaking those schemes and putting in practice these concepts in transportation industries, we will be able to and open and create open networks. We can have very strong and nourished networks that maybe will turn the operation, the post of transport operator an aspirational subject. For that, we need infrastructures from both public and private capital in highways. We need to look for solutions on security since the beginning of planning, something we missed in operations of inbound to manufacturing in DHL. When they go to or go from the back, we have motorcades of 2 or 3 large trucks moving at 90 kilometers per hour, fully loaded. This is a moving train. It is very unlikely something or someone can stop this vehicle. And with this, we have an inbound to manufacturing solution here. The situation has a lot more to give. However, the production here is already throwing the questions from the audience at me, and that is the reason why I will have to stop here and continue with the question and answer session. The first question: inbound to manufacturing applies to other sectors outside of the automotive sector, and this question is aimed for Gloria.
Well,
I'm sorry, I think the question was indeed for Monica.
Sí, claro,
yes,
como pues lo comenté en un inicio,
as I said before,
el modelo de inbound to
inbound
manufacturing
manufacturing
se está
model
convirtiendo en una
is
oportunidad
becoming an emerging opportunity for sectors
industrias
in several industries, and every industry that has the need for uh, for collecting operations, for collecting materials, of course it's applicable to them, the inbound manufacturing, I mean.
Very well. Gloria, what do you have to say? Well, I think that when it comes to inbound to manufacturing, putting it in practice in other sectors, perhaps we can talk about what has happened in DHL. Like industry, we have always provided the solution for the automotive sector. However, a few years ago, we complied with the paradigm, and the consumption sector, we started doing so and applying these solutions to other customers in the consumption sector. So it is applicable to other sectors. It is applicable for all companies in the business of bringing inputs into their manufacturing plant. They will be able to apply the inbound to manufacturing solution. All right, the next question is: what are the main elements that need to be taken into consideration to create an inbound to manufacturing network? Who would like to answer?
¿Eso para quién va? Para...
And that question is meant for whom? I can answer it.
Bueno,
Okay.
es muy simple.
Well, it's very simple. Which are the main elements? That you have a provider network and that you have some volume to transport. If you have these two, you can start working on all the model and the interaction that will happen between companies, as we said, supplier, customer, and transportation. So all these three need to work together for the model, do the planning, of course, and in the end to gather up the information that you needed to program transport routes, also the frequency of these deliveries, and the best ways to move this volume. So in the end, I identify these as the keys for this modal success. It's easy and simple. You have a supplier network and some volume to transport.
Claude, what is your opinion on communication? Something we didn't address quite as much in this panel is total visibility. We said we wanted to give our customers a lot of visibility as things are happening. From the inbound to manufacturing network, we set up several tools that break the mold of conventionality, such as GPS. Before it was just a beacon happening every certain minutes, and then you see a line crossing maps in a very rational way. It's like we are on top of a volcano, hello, or we are in a somewhere along the road in with no access. We have improved here. We came up with solutions of transportation with second by second beacons. You can see how the unit is moving in the road. So the moment it is leaving the road, an alarm is set off. This is a part of the infrastructure that needs to be created for the inbound, and the control that we have in recollection, what we are planning to collect, and from there to reality, coming up with automated information, automated systems allowing us to scan the material, providing correct information, and giving total visibility and making sure everything we planned is everything is going down. Maybe even having a checklist when picking up the material, knowing how it was handled, if there were certain logistic bars, if it was correctly loaded, if something fell or it didn't fall, how the material looks like when arranged, if it was arranged in the correct fashion or not, and from there, how the doors were closed and sealed off with the plates or whatever, giving the customers total visibility, saying this is how it is living and this is how it needs to be arrived unless it has been tampered with due to an external situation of ours. And finally, gathering up the information, just like you said, transportation network, transport operators, suppliers, all detailed information. The better the quality of the information, the better the planning we will have, and better planning will lead to greater success and greater certainty to inbound to manufacturing. This question goes for the both of you, and this is the last question. Risk management. Risk is a constant in all operations, but what factors, I mean, how can inbound to manufacturing can help us mitigate risks with these solutions? Who wants to answer?
Si quieren, inicio con
I
esta,
will start with this one,
respuesta.
answering this
Creo
question.
que pues
I think that
hay una absoluta administración del riesgo
there's
porque
absolute
como
risk
comentaba hace un
management
las
because,
respuestas
as we
previas,
said while answering previous questions, you need to plan this
entonces en
totally.
todo tu
So,
proceso
throughout the
operativo
process, the
tienes
operative
esta planificación
process,
como
you
soporte.
are
Al
planning
mismo
and you have
tiempo
the
lo que
plan as a
está dando
backup.
la visibilidad
And that gives you the
exactamente de qué
visibility
es
of
lo que está
exactly
sucediendo
what's
y cómo
happening
está
and
sucediendo en
how
la
it is
operación.
happening
Tienes
in your
perfectamente
operation.
delimitado
You
cuál es el rango
know
de acción y
everything
también
about
pues
the
tienes
actions
una
that you can
estructura
take, and
económica
you also have
que
an
es
economic
variable,
structure which
pero
is
al
like
mismo
variable,
tiempo
but
se
also
encuentra perfectamente
it is
definida y
perfectly
ajustada
well
de acuerdo a
defined
la
and
necesidad de
adjusted
la
to the
operación que se
needs of the
realice. Como
operations.
bien lo comentabas, ¿no?
As
Tienes
you said,
premisas de
you have
kilómetro
like
recorrido, metro
kilometers
cúbico transportado.
and cubic
Entonces,
meter that was
en este
transported.
esquema
So these
de
parameters
transportación
in this transportation scheme, you're only paying for what you are doing and not more because you define that from the beginning. So by having this planning and these definitions, you minimize risk and you can have a better control throughout the operation and the logistic.
Yes, the variable economic structure allows us to manage economic risks. Of course, if we are planning constantly and taking variations into consideration to focus on exceptions, having an operative backbone from planning with the steady operation as following the Pareto rule, 80% is planned for, 20% is a constant. We know 20% could suffer from an alteration, and this allows us to manage risks. Is there a route we need to modify? Anything we need to change? Inbound to manufacturing allows you to do that. A trip leaving from here to there, you know it left, you know where it's going, but you can correct it, you can change it from cluster, maybe even deflect it to a cross stock, changing, modifying the structure on the transportation means. Thank you, both of you. By all means, this conversation has helped us explore inbound to manufacturing at a depth in which we can understand the concept. We talked about the challenges, the new trends, and the social commitment everybody needs to have in order to come up with a sustainable transportation solution at the same time as being efficient in costs. I thank you both for being here with us, and I don't know if you have any final remarks. Moni, Gloria, thank you so much.
No, de nuevo, perdón,
Well,
reiterar la invitación
sorry, I just
para
want
que vean que
to.
es totalmente en vivo.
As you see, it's completely live, but yes, I want to say again, thank you for inviting me. I think it's very important to start using these models, even though they are old in existence, but we are living proof of the benefits that we are getting from them. So thank you, Alfred, and thank you, DHL.
Ahora sí.
Well, now it's my turn, and yes, thank you for inviting me to participate in this talk. It was very enriching, and I think the concept is there, is open for many other industries, so you can all have the benefits of having a different model with inbound manufacturing.
You just touched on the key point, on the main point of this forum. You as a customer, as a transporter, listening to us, perhaps you feel curiosity towards this model of transportation. More research will come up. So get in touch with us so we can provide you with these type of solutions that will help you become more efficient and lower your costs. Thank you very much. I pass the floor back to you.
Well, thank you very much for this valuable information. These ideas are changing the world in terms of logistics. Let me tell you about my experience with inbound manufacturing. We're seeing this in the automotive sector, but it's also true for the consumption sector and for many other sectors that we work with. The inbound manufacturing is applicable there. So thank you everybody for sharing your experiences with us and for taking this inbound manufacturing experience that you have for us.
This is how we wrap up with today's agenda on the Transportation Forum 2021. We hope from the bottom of our hearts you enjoyed it as much as we did. We remind you during the following days you will get a survey on your email. Please help us responding to the invitation, and we urge you to come with us since 9 a.m. Mexico City time with the activities for the second day of our DHL Transportation Forum 2021.
Don't forget to share your experiences and comments on this first day and to invite your colleagues and friends to participate for tomorrow's sessions. And this space has been planned for everyone that has been with us throughout the day. So thank you for participating, and we'll be waiting for you tomorrow.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Alfredo. See you tomorrow.
troubles only just